Welcome everyone. We are live on the show today. We are talking about all the latest news from the week. This is the weekly crypto recap show. I'm delighted to have all of you here today joining in the fun of going back over the last week and figuring out what happened. So there's a lot to cover, but I have two new guests on the show today, and I wanted to welcome them. First of all, we have Stella Bell. She is head of awesome content at Pixios.io, and that is her official title, head of awesome content, and all of the other content she obviously doesn't cover. Welcome to the show, Stella.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm so glad I could make it this time, and I do apologize for the past, but I really appreciate the chance to be on your show. I love your show. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm delighted. For those of you who don't know, we tried to have Stella Bell on a previous show, and it didn't work out for some reason, but I'm absolutely thrilled that this time we've got it sorted and you're here finally, so very happy about that. Let's also welcome to the show Max Sklar. He's the host of Local Maximum podcast. He's also a machine learning engineer. Welcome to the show, Max.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. This is my first show of this kind of format since I started podcasting, so I'm a little nervous, but very excited.
You should be. The stakes are high, and depending on how well you do, Llama may or may not give you virtual chocolate in the chat.
Totally make or break, yeah.
Absolutely, high stakes. And welcome back to the show, Chris Karabats, aka Zaphoid from Smart Cash. Wonderful to have you on as usual.
Always happy to be here, Naomi. It's the highlight of my Fridays.
Highlight of my Friday too, because they're always awesome people to chat to, awesome news to cover, and awesome people in the chat. So let's get into it. And before we start, I want to give a huge shout out to Crypto Insider. We are sourcing a bunch of our news from them. I've got a partnership with them for this news show, and I'm delighted to be working with them. Awesome news outlet. So if you guys want to read any more about the stuff that we are talking about in the show, then I'll put a bunch of links in the information so you can click on those and head over to the Crypto Insider website and brush up on all of the latest news. So always a wonderful resource. Huge thank you to Crypto Insider. So let's start off. To begin with today, I want to talk about this ratings bombshell that everyone is mentioning. You've got the Weiss Ratings agency, and they put out a report that it gave a bunch of ratings for different cryptocurrencies, and it wasn't what a lot of people expected. So let's talk about this a little bit. Do you want to start us off, Stella Bell?
Yeah, I would like to, since Pixios is a art and gaming platform that is built on EOS, and so we're using the
we'll talk about Pixios later on in the show.
I just wanted to clarify that for anyone that's watching, that it's I work on a platform that's built on EOS right now.
Disclaimers.
Okay, just disclaimer right out front. This rating was very interesting because I think a lot of people were shocked about EOS being considered above Ethereum. I think that was because I believe EOS got an A and Ethereum received the A minus, and I think people were shocked by that. I'm just getting a general idea about that. When you look at some of the data that I think people are not aware of regarding the usage, the transaction speed, but actually the amount of users in a 24-hour period of time. You know, EOS has over 100,000 users, and they're active users. They're not bots in that 24-hour period, whereas Tron has 66,000 and the Ethereum has around 11,000. So when you look at those numbers, that's part of this is looking at daily usage and active users. That's a statistic that is very new. It's changed in the last 6 to 9 months. So that's what I wanted to bring to everyone's attention, that if you were following crypto 6 months ago, I was involved, in lots of different projects. 6 months ago was an entirely different thing. There's new tools to figure out, hey, what has happened. So
absolutely. I think that's such an important point. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this space moves at lightning speed, and I think that some people think that they understand what's going on because they used to keep up with it, but you just got to keep on the ball because everything changes. What are some of the other, Max or Chris, what do you think about this report that's come out?
Well, I was also very surprised because I haven't looked into EOS too much, and I'm actually a little fuzzy. I was hoping somebody could answer me. What's the distinction between EOS and Ethereum? It seems like, Ethereum wants to be the general computer. What could EOS possibly be doing that would encourage people to go over to their platform for Ethereum? In other words, where is this usage coming from?
Great question.
EOS.
Can I, you
Go
want to
for it.
answer it? I'm sorry. You
Go
want to
for
answer
it.
that?
You work on EOS. You can answer it better.
Guys,
than
let's
me.
have one of these apology standoffs where you both say, no, you first. No, you go first. I couldn't
Okay.
possibly. Well, I'll go first. So I had an interview with Ash Oro that is coming out next week. He's involved. He runs EOS Radio. And I wanted to know this as well. So I think this is a really interesting issue. I've never really paid attention to EOS, to be honest. But we had a great conversation, and I was very interested to learn about how it works, and just that it does have such a broad user base, seems to be very fast, and I think that it's more scalable, I hear, than Ethereum. Like, people are more interested in that side of things. But go ahead, Chris. You said you had something to add.
Well, right now, EOS can do a lot more transactions a lot faster than ETH. The transactions are essentially free in EOS versus the high and variable gas fees in ETH. And overall, it's just a matter of big differences between a POW chain and a DPoS chain. This report actually talks about daily transactions somewhat, where it mentions their last report was in February of 2018. And at that point, the highest transaction blockchain was actually Steemit, another DPoS blockchain by Dan Larimer. And that had about 1 million per day, where over the last week, EOS averaged over 19 million operations every day, which is above and beyond, an order of magnitude more than ETH could at this point. Now, ETH is working about solving those scaling problems, but EOS has right now, where ETH has yet to do that.
Yeah, so the numbers, I just wanted to, I did a little research this morning just so everyone is clear on the transactions per second is actually the metric that has the most effect on user experience. So we're averaging in EOS, like I looked at it today. These are transactions per second for today. We're averaging between like 74 and 80, but the maximum record was 3,000 transactions per second. And just to give you an idea of all the other ones and what they're capable of doing, so Ethereum is capable of doing 25 transactions per second. Bitcoin is doing 7 transactions per second. Visa, it's interesting, Visa does 1,700 transactions per second. Tron is doing about, Tron's, they claim they did 2,000 transactions per second. So from a dApp developer perspective, if you want the users to have the experience of a centralized company like a Twitter or any kind of game, you need a fast blockchain. So the developers are kind of where it's at. So in other words, if you can't get the user experience to work, then you're going to go on the chain where you can, and that's what EOS gives the developers, is that ability to. I play EOS Nights. It's a game. You wouldn't even know you're on a blockchain. There's lots of dApps like that now. I don't even know I'm on a blockchain on Pixios or the smart contracts. You send and it's done. It's like, this is crazy, right? So once you experience EOS, when you go back to Ethereum or other blockchains that are slow, it's so hard. It's very difficult to deal with the slowness of the other chains. So that's just, it takes a while to learn everything. But I've been on Ethereum, Bitcoin, EOS since all this stuff, 3 years. And anyway, Someone else. Sorry, I think I took
Well, I just have one more question. So to achieve this, this huge transaction throughput, is there some kind of, what is the technical trade-off that they're making? Is there something that they're going to be maybe not as good at as Ethereum?
Well,
I don't think there is a technical
Centralization.
No, centralization.
Actually, that's a myth though, because there's 21 head block producers, and then there's hundreds. Okay, so it's a rotating, and it's not the whole centralized. That is a myth.
well, let's
It's a myth.
but let's go into some of these more technical questions when I release my video with Ash, because I think it really did clarify a lot of these points for me. As I said, I haven't really looked into EOS much before, and I had a lot of these same questions. So that should be coming out next week when I announce an exciting new thing that I am also putting together. So let's carry on that conversation there. I want to move on because we've got a lot to cover. But apart from EOS in this ratings report, what are some other reactions you guys had?
One of the charts that stands out to me is chart 2, major improvements in adoption. Basically, you have high improvements in network security, network capacity, developer participation is even up as compared to February 2018. The only negative in this chart is, of course, popular interest is down 22%, apparently based on Twitter. I'm not exactly sure 100% what they're going by there. But overall, this just, really ties to the whole buildable mindset of when you're in a bear market, get down and work, and you'll have improvements and a stronger base to build on when sentiment turns around.
All right, let's move on here. There was another report that came out. The SEC there's a report by Bitwise that says that most Bitcoin trading is faked by unregulated exchanges. So this was an interesting thing to read, and then the SEC put out this report that basically says, what do suspicious exchanges look like, et cetera, et cetera. So what are our thoughts on this?
Well, this article kind of caught my eye because it was, it just made me realize, it just made me remember like all of the software projects and people who work on internet software that I talk to, how all of our metrics are just off. I should probably use a stronger word than off. I should probably say like bullshit. Like when people talk about page views or clicks or ad impressions, podcast downloads. I mean, do people trust podcast download? I don't know. And, I can't say how many people I've talked to when trying to, sell their product or whatever. I'm not talking about blockchain. I'm just talking about general internet entrepreneurship when they're like, I'm being honest and it's hurting me because all of my competitors are giving these inflated numbers and I can't compete. So that could be a little bit of what's happening here. So it's unfortunate, but not surprising.
Chris, you had something to add?
The report that CoinBene put out, CoinBene trying to get an ETF approved by the SEC. This is CoinBene trying to answer the questions the SEC has about how volatile and unregulated the current market is. Their point, though, is that if you remove all of this fake volume, you end up getting a very tight market with about a percentage of the market cap moved every day as gold or other similar commodities move. And it actually has a very tight and well-traded market outside of this fake volume that is used to listing fees, make your coin look better, who knows what it is. But that is the point of this report, is to say that, yeah, there's a lot of garbage going on in the market, but the base market is actually strong and healthy, and you shouldn't deny an ETF based on this other stuff that's happening.
I think that's a great point. I do want to mention some of the things that were in this SEC report. So if you, I'll add a link as well so that people can take a look at it. But they're looking at questions like, what do real exchanges look like? And then they ask the question, what do suspicious exchanges look like? They have an example of CoinBene as one of these suspicious exchanges, which leads us into one of the next things that we're going to talk about, but I don't want to leave just yet. But what were some of your thoughts about them kind of calling out some of these exchanges in this SEC report?
I don't think anyone was very surprised by who they called out. I don't think this is a surprise to anybody who's actually done trading on any of these exchanges. We all know who the trusted players are, and we all prefer that we trade on those trusted players. I think the only one that people might question about being trustworthy being Binance is just because people love to hate Binance.
They also...
I'm trying to find the list of 10 exchanges they thought were good. And it was Binance, Bitfinex, Bitflyer, Bitstamp, Bittrex, Coinbase Pro, Gemini, Itbit, who I'd actually never heard of before this, Kraken, and Poloniex.
So they've got... all of those... Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, all those do have their fair share of detractors. I mean, you could just go search for Poloniex on Reddit and find a whole bunch of horror stories. But that's sort of separate from what the actual trading volume may be like on those exchanges.
Right, and they're also looking at things like real-world footprint, so number of Twitter followers, number of Google search results, web traffic by SimilarWeb, venture funding raised, and number of employees on LinkedIn. Comparing, for example, CoinBene to Coinbase. And for example, you've got 10K Twitter followers versus 1 million on Coinbase. You've got a number of Google search results, 1.25 million compared to 26 million for Coinbase. Number of employees, like 42, most appear to be part-time compared to 852 at Coinbase. So it is interesting comparing those footprints as well. But if no one else has anything to add about all of this, I do want to mention some more stuff about CoinBene. So two platforms, DragonEx and CoinBene, they recently disclosed hacks. DragonEx is believed to have lost at least $1 million, while CoinBene losses are estimated at around $45 million. So this is interesting that this sort of comes out at the same time. What are your thoughts on all of this?
CoinBene is the #1 volume exchange on CoinMarketCap if you don't filter by their filters. It's not entirely surprising that more and more exchanges are getting hacked. Interestingly enough, despite that it was kind of announced in dollars that CoinBene was hacked, they haven't actually gone out and fully admitted it yet, though you can do plenty of searching and find people who see, $100 million worth of tokens and ETH moving out of the exchange when it shouldn't have. So it's somewhat unclear exactly what's going on at CoinBene, but it's just more in this year of bear market where people need to take security seriously, and this is a bit sad that CoinBene has supposedly lost this much money and is, last I checked, not being very transparent about it.
Absolutely, and they've DragonEx has listed a bunch of wallets where money have moved to as well, and then DragonEx, so that's a Singapore-based exchange, and apparently they have different like officials from nearby countries looking into this. So authorities in Thailand, Singapore, Hong Kong, they're assisting with the investigation. Estonia is also assisting with that as well. And then you go down to CoinBene hack. So they put out an announcement, I think it was yesterday, what's the date today? It's the 29th, so the day before yesterday they put this out, and just kind of outlining what's going on. So it says they took measures to upgrade the wallet immediately to help global users and partners avoid market risks and guarantee the security of all parties' assets. And it says that user assets on CoinBene platform are 100% secure. Our platform promises that if any user assets will be lost, we will compensate 100%. So that's interesting, because $45 million for an exchange where apparently most of the volume, according to the SEC, is fake, they're going to be compensating that out of their own pockets. That's it's very interesting.
Yes, and this is an announcement that's being very careful to not mention hack or any specific security breach. Yeah. They released this announcement during their upgrade process. So it's a little bit unclear what really is going on there and what exactly is happening.
Indeed. If no one has anything else to add about the hacks, we'll move on. Let's talk a little bit about Coinbase, because that did come up in the report. Now, Coinbase apparently is moving into the world of staking. So they're offering staking services to institutional clients. They're using Tezos at the moment, And apparently, I mean, there are some issues with staking. So issues with like having to keep a certain amount of the money hot at all times, which could be like a security risk. But they're saying that it's all going to be 100% guaranteed in cold storage. What do we think about all of this happening on and this foray into the world of staking?
I have something to say. I think it's a fantastic idea and move on Coinbase, because staking is becoming the new mining in a lot of the different coins. For example, I guess Tezos is doing that, as well as many DPoS chains, including EOS. We all stake a lot different coins, and I think that Coinbase is doing the right thing by assuming the risk and introducing this new concept. I think that a lot of people are maybe not familiar with how staking works. So the fact that they're taking on the risk for their institutional customers, I think, is a fantastic move. It will help the institutional investors understand staking and how they can earn a return on their investment. But the fact that Coinbase is doing the online, they're putting their assets online for the customers, the customers benefit from that as well. I think it's a fantastic move, because I'm pro staking. I mean, there's just no way around it. I think staking is going to be more and more popular.
Well, if we go back to the original Dark Shadows of the Bright Future Weiss report, they talk about how a lot of coins are moving over to staking and proof of stake and distributed proof of stake. So it does make sense that Coinbase would want to move more into it. I would like to bring a bit more attention to something you mentioned at the top here, where Coinbase is putting up their own assets for this. So client assets will remain inside Coinbase's fully insured cold storage at all times, mitigating risk to investors. But as we said, you can't stake with cold storage. So Coinbase will be putting up its own coins and assuming the risk for staking, whatever the risk is to them. And they said that their clients could make about 6.6 annually based on this after subtracting Coinbase's fees. So this is actually something very attractive for coins like Tezos and other staking coins to get on this, because that means if an investor wants to buy $100,000 worth of your coin and stake it, Coinbase also has to buy a certain amount of those coins to stake them. So this will essentially double the impact of institutional investors. So this is a very prospect, and Coinbase assume they're going to make a whole bunch of money off this if they're willing to make this double investment.
I presume so. I mean, I turned down my microphone a little bit to stop with the static, but now I think I have to like talk right in here for you to hear me. If I talk here, can you still hear me?
Swallow the microphone.
The microphone. So is this? Can you guys still hear me if I'm like out here?
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good. All right, that'll do. It's better than static. So it is interesting. I mean, they're offering, I think it's 6.6% annually, which is interesting, because at the moment, if you're in crypto, you have to kind of bank on the value of your assets going up, right, in order for you to make money. And generally, people prefer crypto. Well, a lot of people I know prefer crypto because it's like, well, you can guarantee that you're going to lose 2% a year if you keep it in government fiat, or you can take a bet and see if the market goes up, and but it's a sure thing that you're going to be losing if you keep it in fiat. But now you're actually saying, well, you can keep it in crypto and you can be earning a percentage, which we used to before interest rates were so low, and in Australia you still do. In America it's unheard of. You can't put money in a bank account and earn interest on it anymore. It's just not a thing that exists.
Remember CDs?
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So
Music, right?
Yeah. So this is something that is interesting. Obviously, it allows them to be using your assets. So, but we have to understand that yes, Coinbase is a financial institution. They are a bank, and now they're a bank that's allowing you to do bank things with crypto. And people can get into that, and if they want to, but understand the risk that if you're not holding your assets, then you don't really own them. And I think that that's fine as long as people understand the risks there, because not much has changed. Like, you've always not owned your assets if you put them in Coinbase. Only now you can not own your assets plus have an upside to that and potentially earn interest, which seems interesting.
For comparison, if you just stake Tezos yourself, according to random site I found, you'll make about 7.5% a year.
7.5%. So
they're taking a percent off.
They're taking a percent off. And what's the upside of that? Like, is it just saying, oh, well, you don't have to worry about learning how the Tezos ecosystem works. You just kind of deal with us. And
well, as we've talked about in regards to Wyoming, you can't, if you actually hold the assets yourself, you don't own them. You have to have a bank holding the assets. So this gives these institutional investors the ability to offload security and compliance onto Coinbase, because they're not actually permitted, regulatorily speaking, to hold these assets themselves.
Right. I have a Bitbacker power chats coming through, so I just want to announce them. And there were a couple from the last recap that apparently didn't go through in time for me to announce, so I just want to mention those before I get on to the new one. So Ventian said the boiling frog is a myth. The water gets hot, he will jump out. Same goes to people in a gradually more totalitarian environment. Government, both people in and out of government will begin to resist. That's an interesting topic, and we'll definitely talk about that in more detail in another show. Just for some context, we were talking about governments, becoming more and more totalitarian and people not really realizing their freedoms are going away. I disagree with you a little bit. I think that people don't generally jump out of the water because it's currently very difficult to emigrate and immigrate across borders. So it's not as easy as just jumping out. So it is something we do have to be careful of, but we'll talk about that in another episode more in full. And then JR from Exciting World Crypto says the aspect that people are able to use crypto to buy small items at this time is very last step towards mass adoption, maybe baby steps, but it's progress, and it will hopefully get people talking, and perhaps spin-offs happen from here, like we're earning to ride a bike. So just talking about smaller transactions that are going on, keeping the ecosystem going, which is always nice. Then we have Archer's Bullseye, who just sent one just then in Smart Cash and said, sorry, no crazy stun for Zaphoid today. Apparently, all of the snow melted. Keep up the good work. Again, for some context, Archer Bullseye requested Zaphoid wear a Viking helmet in a previous weekly recap, which Zaphoid obliged, and that's what happens on this show. You guys request it through Bitbacker, you're going to see it on here, so you guys go for it. I think someone asked if they could ask questions. Absolutely. Send any questions through Bitbacker, and we will announce them all on air, no matter how trolly they are. So there you go. Let's keep moving from Coinbase. I want to talk a little bit about, now, this isn't strictly crypto related, but it is huge news in the digital landscape. Europe's controversial overhaul of online copyright receives final approval. So there's a lot to unpack here. Do you want to start us off, Zaphoid?
Well, this is something that a lot of the internet people are freaking out about, because
oh no, you froze, Zaphoid.
Awesome.
He froze, so I will introduce a little bit while he comes back. So people are saying that it is a dark day for internet freedom. It is, you got one side of them saying that this is going to really curtail what people can do on the internet, which I personally agree with. I think it's terrible. But you have other people who are advocating for the law, saying that this is a big step ahead. It would unify Europe's digital market while protecting online creativity. This whole idea of IP protecting creativity there. So Zaphoid, are you back with us? Do you want to talk a little bit about this?
I think so. Can you see me?
We can see you. You're as beautiful as ever, but lacking a Viking hat, I just have to point out.
Yes, well, my kids got their hands on it, and now I have no idea where it is. But at any rate, so this is much criticized, as you said. So everybody on the internet is freaking out about it. This is going to start requiring like upload filters to filter out copyright infringing stuff, which doesn't work. I mean, anybody who's had videos on YouTube and has any sort of popularity has had fake DMCA strikes against them and takedown notices. We all know that doesn't work, and there's no automated way to do that. This is going to shut down a whole bunch of stuff in the EU if they attempt to implement it as written. Also, they have a link tax, which I need to get some more details on for exactly what it is, but it's talking about sites that link and then reproduce some news articles and other content from other sites. There was supposed to be a meme thing that was part of this. So this Article 13 was known as the meme ban for a while, but they pulled most of that out. So you can still post memes in the EU. Thank God. I don't know what would happen to the internet if we couldn't do that.
And there's also
just,
a parody.
Yeah.
I just want to add in there.
Yeah.
They also said that parody art, parody anything is exempt from all of this stuff. So you can still parody some piece of famous art or whatever, and you'll be okay. But really, with a filter, how does the filter know it's a parody, right?
Yeah.
Like,
you can't automate
AI does not have a sense of parody or no parody. It's just one thing. So, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're exactly right, and that's part of the problem here. Is we're having the legislation getting well ahead of the technology. Even if this legislation wasn't something abhorrent in and of itself, there's just not enough technology there to apply it, and they're hoping it is. But this is the EU lately. They've done this. They've legislated that all cars by 2022 have speed limiters on them that dynamically reduce speed to the speed limit. They have a bunch of other things that just freedom and the EU are not being friends right now, and it's going to be interesting to see how this goes along, which is sad because as bad as the EU is in a lot of ways, it's still easier for crypto than the United States, but it's just getting bad in so many other ways that it's making life very difficult. We'll have to see how this affects people who are making their livelihood off of YouTube and off of talking about the news, because that's the best place to get news these days, off of random YouTube people, because mainstream media sucks.
True that. It's it's really sad for me to watch what's going on in Europe, what's going on in the UK, what's going on in America and Australia with encryption and all of these places with being able to share information, with being able to talk about things you want to talk about. It's not a good state for freedom at the moment. So let's hope that blockchain technology can help give some of that freedom back. As I say, I post all of my content on a bunch of different platforms. Some of them are based on blockchain tech and are immutable. So things like library.io I think are great. There are all kinds of platforms out there people can look towards, but definitely time for people to start diversifying their social media portfolio, perhaps. Let's
can I add one more thing
do.
to this whole so when I was reading about this new law that they put into effect, the thing is that a lot of these so I'm involved in this art platform that we're designed to help artists earn from their creations. And so basically when you create a non-fungible token, an NFT, from your work of art, it has all the metadata, it has all this information that is about that piece of art that you actually profit from as the original creator. So in a lot of ways, these blockchain solutions, the startups and all of this innovation that's happening right now, that I'm involved in one of them, we are designing the tools to give to artists so that they can monetize their work and track it where it's being used. So it's a solution that wasn't really thought of in that law. Like there's a disconnect between, we have to go out and do this and put all these filters, but it's like, wait, we didn't research what is the innovation that's happening in the space that is directly connected to the problems of copyright. I just want to throw that out there. And then it's a good time to be a Creative Commons meme artist. Just make all your stuff Creative Commons to help the EU citizens and say, like, look, I've made this site. Use everything because it's got the Creative Commons license, which is basically anyone can use it, and please use it. It's a better world if we're helping each other out. Right?
Absolutely. You see a blossoming of ideas. And Stella Bell, you're someone who, you make so much content. You make content for people all over the internet. I know when I first got involved in Steemit, you were right there. You're helping me out. You're kind of this central player who's just an amazing resource for all these people making all this art and, creative things for people. So I'm sure that, this affects you deeply, and I love the idea of having this Creative Commons website where people can go and just feel free to use things. Maybe that's the direction we have to go in. If people want to protect their stuff, they'll just have to kind of be outside of that ecosystem, and we'll see which ecosystem blooms the most.
Yeah, I love that. I just want to make one quick point is that this kind of calls to mind for me the Stop Online Piracy Act that was proposed in the US Congress in 2011. And that was defeated. And it kind of seemed like, okay, there was such big opposition, US politicians aren't going to go down that road again. But now it seems like Europe might drag us down that road anyway.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because a lot of the trade treaties can require that different countries are compliant with other countries' laws, such as this.
Indeed. So we'll see what indeed gets dragged down with the European Union. Let's move on. I want to talk a little bit about Brave, and this is something you wanted to mention, Max. So the Brave browser. I don't know if anyone who's watching this uses Brave. I know some of them do, because some of you send me basic attention tokens, which is always wonderful. But it's kind of a browser that is looking to disrupt the way that ad revenue happens online. It's pretty exciting. I like browser because of all the ad blocking features, and it just seems like a safer browser to be using. But Max, you want to start us off with talking a little bit about this, and in particular about how it was recently commended. Who was it? It was Larry Sanger, who's a Wikipedia co-founder, who said that he switched from Chrome to Brave, which is pretty big. So do you want to start us off a little bit here?
Yeah, they seem to be well positioning themselves as the browser for privacy. I got privacy and piracy mixed up now. So yeah, okay. But a couple months ago, I got a new job, new computer, so I was able to start fresh and start trying out this browser. And I had tried it a couple of years ago. It was a little too new, but maybe not a couple of years ago, maybe less. But it's gotten a lot better. It's very fast. It's and yes, it has very good ad blocking technology on it. Of course, using the internet there, every once in a while you go to a page and it gives you a pop up and says, "You're a terrible person because you use ad blocking technology." And then I'm like, "Oh, okay. I guess I have to use Chrome." And then I get the same pop-up. Oh, I forgot I have my ad blocker on Chrome too. But it sounds like this could be maybe a shift in their business in their business model. I think a little bit before they kind of had this thing where, okay, you were going to pay monthly for this service, where we would kind of tip the websites that you use most in these monthly payments that you make. And I think they're discovering that probably people aren't willing to make these monthly payments. I think at some point they gave me their cryptocurrency, whatever that is, and said, "Hey, I gave you some money. You want to send it back to these websites?" And I'm like, sure. But yeah, I think it's tough to get people to pay for a browser. And so this new idea that they have that, they're going to put the ads back in and you'll get paid for it. It's interesting. It's going to be very tough for them to have all of the stakeholders change their behavior, but I commend them for trying.
Just as a point, this isn't a new idea. This was their announced intention from the beginning.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So this was what they've wanted to do the whole time with BAT. Is basically, that's why it's called a basic attention token. You're supposed to earn it for giving your you're giving it by giving to users.
We heard a couple of words of that, Zaffoid. Yeah. My computer's attention perhaps cut out there. But no, we got the idea that you said that the idea is to give some of these ads your basic attention, and then you can get rewarded for that. So that,
one more thing, just
the main point was that this was their intent from the start.
Yeah.
So I installed that for my kid, and it's 55,000 ads blocked, just little data. She only uses Brave.
I love that.
Because 1,000 ads that didn't enter her little brain.
And I love the idea. There's so much malware that comes along with ads as well. I just love the idea of just blocking as many things as possible. And so I'm a big fan of Brave for doing that. And a
lot of these are just trackers. They're just tons and tons of trackers, zillions and zillions.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So we'll keep updated with that. As we said, there were some kinks to work out in Brave. There are still some kinks through Bitbacker. Brave doesn't work as well as the other browsers. I think that the chat option for embedding the YouTube chat doesn't show up, but yeah, there are some little differences that are being worked on. So we'll keep you posted on that. And thank you to everyone who sends me basic attention tokens. I really appreciate that. It's very cool. Like anyone who goes to my YouTube, anyone who goes to my YouTube channel, I appreciate that. Let's keep moving. So Peter Thiel-backed crypto brokerage Tagomi just got its BIT license. I don't want to dwell on this too much, but I just want to mention that since 2014, they are, I think, the 18th company to receive a BIT license. The 18th in 4 years. In 4 years.
So crazy.
This is almost 5 years, actually. It was the middle of 2014. So 5 years. 18. So that's insane. So if we look at the history of the BIT license, I think in the first year, 1 was granted. You know, this is 2014. Things were booming. New York was a crypto, you know, it was just a crypto heaven. There was so much going on. It was just blooming. And you know, New York being the financial capital of the world, all these blockchain companies were like, yeah, New York, BIT license came in. All of that shuts down.
And all these guys in Union Square trading with each other.
Oh my God. Yeah, the Satoshi, what was it called? The Satoshi meetup?
Satoshi Square.
Thank you, Satoshi Square at the New York Bitcoin Center. That was fun. Well, it actually started off at elsewhere. It was like a private location, and then the New York Bitcoin Center took that up, and they had all this like floor trading, like buy, sell, da, da, da. It was really exciting. I used to work at the Bitcoin Center at the time, and basically in a year they granted 1 BIT license. So there wasn't one company trying to do business there. There were probably hundreds. There may have been more than that. Companies, probably thousands, people who were all over the world who wanted to have access to New York domiciled people, and 1 was granted. Then a year later, 1 more was granted. So in 2 years, 2 licenses were granted. Now, when we come to 5 years, we have 18. It's disgraceful. That's really all I wanted to mention about this. I'm glad that another one was issued, but it just seems more like, you know, whoever has the best connections to the people offering the BIT license get it. You know, when you have Ben Lawsky's company that he's on the head of, they're the second one ever to receive one of these, and Circle is the first one ever to receive one of these Bitcoin licenses. I mean, it's just, the whole thing is just ridiculous. So that's all I have to say. Unless anyone has something to add, we'll move on. All right, we'll all pretend that we share in my
Chris, on mute.
Oh, is Chris trying to talk, but he's muted himself?
Just not my day. The BIT license thing is a strong reason to talk about this article. As one reason I liked it, but also you have big money people. Peter Thiel, I mean, he has money. He's a big .com guy, and his new company has raised $30 million to be a crypto brokerage. So, and he's brought in people from Goldman Sachs and everything. You know, again, not our favorite people in the world, but this is more of the stuff. A lot of stuff's happening despite the fact that crypto is supposedly dying, according to all the mainstream people.
I know, there's so much volume going on. It's awesome. It's really exciting to see. I actually just finished, so we had the Satoshi Roundtable spin-off event, the Side Table, this week, and it was amazing. It was focused on securities, and it had some awesome people come talking about what they're building. It just gets me so excited to go to events where I see really cool people just discussing ideas and all the things they're building and the way they're changing the world. Like, I'm as excited as ever. So all the people who are saying like, oh, RIP Bitcoin, it's the end of everything. Like, I mean, they don't know what they're talking about. They clearly have never, you know, chatted to some of the people building in this space. So moving on, this is interesting. Ex-Enron CEO is planning apparently a crypto comeback. He's been in jail for 14 years, and now, like a little over a month from being released from prison, his involvement in a giant Enron scandal. He's like apparently eyeing the blockchain center. He's meeting with different people in the blockchain center. The project he's putting together apparently is shrouded in secrecy at the moment. But What do you all think about this? I mean, just what we need. Another famous scammer.
There goes our
crypto.
scandal-free streak. No scandals since.
Ridiculous. So ridiculous. So absurd. I mean, come on. Who would give him money?
Come on, man. His pyramid scheme will be sanctified with the blockchain, right? I mean, this is hilarious. It's like, I don't know. It's just bizarre. I just wanted to bring it up because it's hilarious.
It is bizarre. It's bizarre. We need a bizarre crypto show, right?
We need our next BitConnect.
He was in his jail cell imagining this, like, I will build this while he's in prison or something, right? That's where he imagined it.
It does make me sad that he goes into prison when in 2002, no social media, he just got a dial-up for crying out loud, and he gets out in 2019 and he sees the crypto people and he says, "Oh, these are my people." I'm like, no.
He did miss the last 2 crashes being in prison, so maybe he's just got out just in time for the third. But he has all this money he saved from not losing all his investments in 2008.
So it's there's these interesting facts about Enron and about the way people were looking at what's going on there. So from 1995 to the year 2000, Fortune called Enron the most innovative company in corporate America. So that's cool. I wonder if you're going to have some of these wonderful crypto Twitter shills saying the same thing about, Shilling, it's a nice name, isn't it?
Shilling! Like his name.
His name's technically Skilling, but I can definitely see some sort of a change in lettering happening along there as he goes. We'll watch what happens there with amusement, I'm sure, and hope to, just make sure people know the facts about what's going on there.
Their power exchange was very innovative until somebody just stopped and asked and went, "How are they making money?"
Why bother people with dumb questions like that, Chris? Why bring those technicalities up, I mean,
to be fair, maybe he was just early. I mean, Lyft just did their IPO today, and they're losing $1 billion a year, and it's just all in the open. So Enron was just before its time.
That's it, maybe. I want to move on a little bit. Let's move from a bad company to a really good company. Let's talk about Kraken. So they've just beefed up their security with some new updates. They're now mandating 2-factor. It's about time they did that. I think that's very important. But they're also doing a bunch more things. So they've unveiled Kraken Security Labs, and they'll be performing vulnerability research into third-party products. So hardware wallets, software wallets, other things like that, as a way to help find and fix security holes in the crypto space without putting users at risk. I think that's awesome. My hat goes off to all the people there. And Jesse Powell, I've been trying to message you, see if you want to do an interview about security and all those wonderful things. So you're not watching, but if anyone else is watching and wants to reach out to him and say that, I would love to set that up. That would be awesome. But I love that Kraken is doing this, and I love that you don't have to, this is just, you don't need a regulatory body to come along and say, well, we're auditing these things and we're giving them our tick of approval and our ratings and all of this is government approved. Instead, you have private sector coming along and saying, well, we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're a highly reputable place. We are going to conduct our own research. If people, want to take us at our word and knowing that our credibility and our long track record of providing good services, then this could be a good research for anyone who wants to learn about particular vulnerabilities, etc. Like, I just love that.
Yeah, this is excellent. I did want to take this opportunity to remind people, as I try to every time it comes up, do not tie your 2FA to your phone number. It will get stolen. It will get stolen, you will lose your funds or whatever you're tying your 2FA to. Use something that isn't associated with your phone number. So when somebody calls your AT&T or T-Mobile or whatever and steals your phone number, they don't get all your stuff.
Exactly.
So scary.
this has happened. I mean, there's been a
Yeah.
lawsuit. I don't think that lawsuit's over yet. But
No, Michael Turpin's still going. In fact, I saw him a couple of months ago and said, does he want to give an update about everything going on in that lawsuit? He got hacked twice with this method. So his SIM card was ported. They took his number and were able to hack his account. And then he called his phone company. It was on high alert. All of the notes in his system said, "Do not ever, change this SIM." Ever, unless I'm there in person and I have my passport and I have like 15 forms of identification. Like he insisted, and it was on high alert. Then it happened again. So that's why he's suing AT&T, because it just it's insane how easy this type of stuff is to happen. So great point, Chris. Always tie it to some sort of app specific device if you have two-factor, and always have two-factor.
Always have two-factor. Your password is bad.
Your password is bad whether you think it is or not. Yes, everyone knows the name of your first pet. Don't use it. So that's awesome. Head off to Kraken. Anyone want to mention anything before we go on? Because I've got a few more articles I want to cover. And we're running out of time, so we'll move on. I do want to mention someone just sent through a power chat on Bitback. And thank you so much for using that. I really appreciate it. And it was anonymous. They said some Bitcoin that said go Pixios. So I really appreciate that. We are maybe I'll use that as a transition, and we will talk about EOS. Do you want to take the helm, because this is a project you're involved with, Stella Bell, and just kind of give us an overview of this exciting new, really interesting platform? I'm going to post a link right now in the chat
to the hub.
Yes, it's
post the. Did I give you the hub link?
Yeah, I posted that already. Do you want to give us an overview of what this is?
Okay, so it's a little more complex than just a dApp. Everyone has this in mind, like it's just a pixel game. No, it's an entire ecosystem that we're building. So this is how it functions. It's where art and games collide. So there's gaming component. There's also the art component. So how that works is that we're going to have many different apps, dApps, sites, and functionalities in the ecosystem itself. So let me just run through the different components of the Pixios hub so that you can understand what it is. The first thing is the auction house, that all of the canvases from the game. So right now we have a pixel game. When that game is finished, that canvas is going to be auctioned in the auction house. Now it's similar to like the real physical art auction houses. So like the highest bidder will win. Okay, so that's the auction house. Then there's something called the art house. That's where the creatives are hanging out, like a water cooler, and project owners, the dApp developers that don't have the creative services part of their startup setup. So they're going to be hanging out there and meeting all of the creatives, the film, artists, painters, designers, and hiring people to help them, create stuff for their new dApp. The other aspect of it is NFTs. So we are, the DGood standard is an open source solution to the entire EOS ecosystem called DGood standard. And we're all developing that together. So our lead dev is also adding code to that initiative. And once the DGood standard is available to use, all the EOS dApps, we will all be using that same DGood standard. That will enable us to have, like, in our wallets, like if someone wants to purchase my digital painting, then we'll be using the DGood standard so that they can purchase that non-fungible token. So back to that, that's the aspect of it that it gets a little dicey because people don't know what NFT is. It's basically a token that there's only one of them, and it usually is representing a piece of artwork, a game, some game component.
So
there's
ultimately,
other
the goal of the ecosystem is to create a blockchain-based digital art marketplace, and
Yes.
the art rights can be bought and sold. It's pretty cool. You guys should take a look at this. Like, just even the look of it is really, really cool, and it's kind of billed as, and there's an article out in Forbes about it. You can check out. I'll put that in the link as well. It's like the first arts and games smart economy on the EOS blockchain, and the idea is to have creativity and marketplaces collide. So go and check that out, and I'll also post resources. You've written a lot about it, Stella Bell. So any links that you want me to post, send them to me, and I will put that in the info so people can go and have a play.
Thank you. You did a better job. I'm still working on what I'm saying. I'm building helping build everything, and it's hard to step back and say what's the big picture. It's the creative place on our platform that is generating a ton of interest because we're community oriented. A lot of the team members came
it's
from,
like just fun.
came
right?
from the community. It's fun. It's engaging. And
well, I'll post those links in the intro,
Okay.
but I encourage everyone to have a look, and maybe I'll do like a live video stream if people are interested.
There's
Just
the
playing
logo.
around.
I look forward to looking more into this.
Oh, there's the logo. That's cool. Someone was mentioning Stella Bell in the comments. They're saying that they would like to purchase the artwork on your wall. Someone mentioned that it was probably your actual wall and that they may have to pay a little more to take that wall out of your house. Maybe you guys can discuss that privately later. I want to mention quickly, so a little bit about Binance. They've got, over the past couple of months, they have looked into new crowdfunding methods, looking at IEOs, which are initial exchange offerings, and typically this is kind of like an ICO, but the only token accepted is like the native exchange token, and the investors must be registered users of the exchange. But basically the idea is to have an exchange used as a crowdfunding platform. So there's that about Binance that I wanted to talk about, but I also wanted to talk about them enhancing security, KYC, and AML in this new partnership. I know, Chris, you had something to add about the this first thing, so why don't you just take it away?
Oh, the IEOs just seems like crypto exchanges trying to be more like traditional stock exchanges, and like, hey, we can charge money for this and get more out of that ICO fund that's continually shrinking. They've already made a whole bunch of money off of charging ICOs for listing, and apparently that's drying up now. So now they're trying to do something else. That may have been somewhat more negative than it needed to be. But
well, we always rely on you to, call things out. Even if we don't always agree, it's nice just to hear that, because you're always very well informed. So what about what they're doing with this new partnership? So they've just announced a new partnership with reg tech company Identity Mind. Now, when Coinbase released their announcement that they're partnering with like a blockchain analytics company to help with like KYC, AML, all of that, everyone kind of went crazy. This is a company that doesn't have a dodgy past, but still really looking into kind of the same stuff, like making sure that they're really compliant. Binance has always kind of been like a bit of a harbor in that respect, so that now that they're going in more in this direction is an interesting turn of events. Any thoughts on this?
they have to continue growing. They're trying to compete against
they have
Coinbase.
to.
Yes. I don't know anything about Identity Mind. Maybe all of their people are evil too, and nobody's looked into it. But,
by the way, these are not the opinions of NBTV. These are the opinions, perhaps, of people talking about things. Just saying that in case we're going to call them evil. But yeah, if they are evil, then we need to call them out. But currently, there's been no reports about dodgy past or anything. So,
I mean, it's just one of those things that, as exchanges, again, they're trying to be IEOs. They're trying to have more legitimacy. So this is just part of that. And admittedly, I'm sure they're being pushed into it by a lot of regulatory people. The United States is probably among the worst of the regulatory agencies breathing down their neck, trying to get them to do stuff like this.
Absolutely. So moving on from Binance, just one more thing that I want to mention in this show, Justin Sun. So this is just a fun article to wrap things up here. So Justin Sun, I mean, we make fun of him a bit on this show because he's kind of the king of spin. He's announcing a new partnership every other week. Like, I went to Starbucks and bought a coffee. Therefore, I'm announcing this new partnership between Tron Starbucks, and things like that. He was apparently announcing on Twitter, there's this tweet here from March 12th, 2019, and they said that he's planning a $20 million free cash airdrop, and he's randomly picking one winner for a Tesla. Just giving away a Tesla. But then there have been all these hiccups there. The guy was announced, like there was a video with him saying, we're giving the Tesla, and then they took down the video and said, oh, because of Twitter compression, it's down. And then they like went to this other guy, was like, yeah, we'll give it to someone else, and the original guy's like, hey, did I just get scammed? Like, what's going on? Didn't I win a Tesla? So apparently they're not giving away a Tesla.
Actually, there's been further development in the last hour.
In the hour, breaking news, guys. All right, Chris, what's going on?
Let's hear it.
So
Let's hear it.
we apparently, or everybody apparently publicly shamed Justin enough that he is giving user Isgar, who is an XRP fan, ironically enough, a Tesla.
Wow.
So he will be getting his new Tesla.
There you go, because he was worried, like he was saying, like, when they took down the video, maybe this first person got forgotten because then they drew the award and wanted to give it to someone else. So yeah, everyone said you should just give away 2 Teslas then, and apparently they're going to now. So that's interesting.
They re-recorded it like 88 times. It was all kinds of sketchy, and apparently this guy managed to get enough people to pay attention to his complaining, and enough people saw the initial video before it was taken down that he was publicly shamed.
Well, there you go. There's a reputation system at work there. Good work, Justin, following through with that. That's appreciated. There are a bunch of other things that I wanted to cover this week. Apple just released a credit card. Crypto world kind of went crazy about that. You've got like uncensorable news, the idea of Blockstream satellite becoming this essential source of information, which is kind of developing. And you got Japan, the largest railway company in Japan, considers accepting crypto for the whole nation, which is kind of interesting. We don't have time to kind of go into all of it. One last thing that I want to mention is breaking news that Canada, the first town in Canada, approves paying taxes with Bitcoin. So we had Ohio experimenting with this before, and now apparently from April, this town in Canada, I think it's in Ontario, that they're going to be allowed to pay taxes in crypto. What do you guys think about that? There's only one correct response, guys, and that is taxation is theft, but I'll let you say other things if you would like.
Was there a town in Ohio a little while back that did that too? Or
yes.
All of Ohio allows for businesses to pay their state business tax in crypto via BitPay, where Innsville is allowing Bitcoin only via Coinberry, but supposedly will be adding some of the top altcoins in the near future.
Well,
fantastic.
It's interesting.
Or of just the same type of things, like allowing people to choose. Like we should have choices, right?
Yeah, and also it kind of undercuts this idea when everyone says, well, the US dollar is a lot more valuable because you can pay your taxes in it. What about a world where you have a choice to pay your taxes in Bitcoin or in US dollar? You know, if you have that choice, who would choose to use US dollar? You know, who would choose to hold US dollar knowing that they're losing 2% a year? It's like an interesting question, right?
I intentionally avoided mentioning Krugman and bringing this up, but you still did, so it's okay.
We should always mention Krugman, especially when it comes to public shaming. You know, we've demonstrated earlier how effective this could be. So let's just make sure we always give a little bit of reference to Paul Krugman and how terrible he is. We've done that now, so that means that we can end the show for this week. Ticked all of the boxes there. I really appreciate all of you coming on. Max, Stella, Bell, Chris, it's wonderful having you all here, sharing your wisdom. I'm going to post all of the links to your podcasts, to your websites, all of that in the information. And a huge thank you in particular to all the people who use the Power Chat. Really, really appreciate that. So JR, Ventian, Archer's Bullseye, even though he didn't give any things that that Chris needed to do, and Anonymous sent in a power chat as well. Really appreciate that. And of course, huge thank you to everyone just in the chat being here, hanging out. As Chris mentioned, this is also my favorite time of the week. I just get to hang out on a Friday afternoon and talk about crypto for an hour with my friends and chat to all of you here. So thank you for being here. I really, really love it when you're here, and go and have a wonderful weekend. And huge thank you to Crypto Insider for making these videos possible. So you guys want to learn more about all of the news going on, head over to their website and check it out. Wealth of information over there, and I'm going to be posting a bunch of links to their articles as well. So thank you guys. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Naomi, so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you,
Sayonara,
Frank.
everyone. Have a great weekend, and taxation is theft.
That's a good way to end it. Taxation is theft, and we're out.
Yeah, I can't top that.